And
You couldn't hear me.
I ran so far away.
That
We are
was
recording,
one of
by the
my
way.
favorite Guitar Hero songs.
Oh, wow, Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero, that's a throwback.
Blast
I'm not
from
going to
the
drop
past.
this again.
That used to be like sort of a joke / not joke when we were in college. Like, man, I love this song.
I'm going to take that off because
Oh.
that is a funky headphone.
Shit, I got a super responsibility.
Yeah.
Being the only one with headphones.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
guys.
everybody, we have a special guest back with us again who came in on less than 24 hours notice because he loves us.
Yes, he does.
Yay!
And we love him.
His name is Wallace McKelvey. You all know him as the favorite podcast friend of
Yes.
Depression Vacation.
Yeah.
I am glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So
You still sound a little far away, Hal. Sorry. Since I'm the sound engineer for
Yeah.
this episode.
See,
There
I'm
you
only
go.
because I don't have headphones on. I'm just seeing some angry red peeking on some people.
Angry Red.
Yeah. So well,
Am I overcompensating? Am I now too close to the
No,
microphone?
you're fine.
you're fine.
You sound good.
Everybody's like in range.
I think I sound fine, so that's all good. Yeah.
So first off, before we talk to Wallace, congratulations are in order because Shannon is now a married woman.
I did it, guys. I won dating. I did it. And no, I mean, thank you, first of all. And it was a lovely day. Some bumps along the road. So Ryan and I had planned the night before to have like our last date as unmarried people. So we went to the melting pot and we're sitting there and we get a text from our officiant. And he's like, hey, my wife and 1-year-old both have COVID. And I was like, oh. And then he was like, there's a chance I won't be able to make it tomorrow.
A chance.
And so I was like, well, I think that's a pretty strong possibility there, my friend. So he woke up the next day. He felt like shit. He tested negative at first, but I was like, I don't believe you. So I was like, we're just going to have to figure it out. And he did it later on test positive. So it was good that we made the right call. But so we called up Brian Brady, Ryan's dad.
I did not know his name was Brian.
Yep.
That's so great.
Brian, the real gangster Brady, came in clutch.
There's something about that name, Brian Brady, that just feels very not aesthetic to me. Like
I kind of like it, like rolls off the tongue, and like you get kind of this image of a person, and like I guess for me that image is exactly
I'm
what Brian
picturing
looks
like a gigantic linebacker circa 1972.
Brian Brady,
with like
BYU.
a big bushy mustache.
You're not entirely wrong. Like when so if you saw like his wedding photos, like you would be like, oh yeah, that's exactly kind of what you're thinking of. But he's an ex New York City cop.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So he's pretty cool as cops go. So, you know, we're like ACAB except Brian Brady.
Not just that, but New York City
But-
cop too. Like
Yeah.
so interestingly enough, like my great grandfather was also a New York City police officer. And my dad did not, like, he doesn't talk about his grandfather that much. I don't think he knew him particularly well. But the impression that I've gotten was he was quite a harsh human being. So especially the like Irish New York cops around that time had like a weird pathos to them.
Well, something that so it ended up being magical and wonderful and
It
amazing.
was.
And Coleman, our officiant, sent Brian the ceremony that he had written, except for there's, you know, all the officiants are like, I'm going to show you the ceremony, except for like a little bit that I don't want you to hear beforehand. It's like personal, and I want you to hear it like in the moment. So that was the only part that Brian didn't have. So Brian overnight wrote his own little thing to insert in there. He went through it with Lori, his wife, and just like nailed it. They called me later on in the night. I'm at dinner with Ryan, and I've had a couple of cocktails because I'm like, I am not prepared for any more bumps. And I just gotten a new phone, and not all my phone numbers transfer, so I'm getting a call, and I'm like, well, who is calling me? So I answered, and I was like, who is this? And it was like, your almost father-in-law? Like, I was like, oh,
Your pre-father-in-law.
oh, sorry, Brian. But he like called me like a couple hours after we had told him that like you're probably going to have to do the ceremony tomorrow, and he was like, oh, well, I just want you to not worry, and like we've got this and it's totally fine. And I'm just like, you are just a shining light and beautiful Brian.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Yeah. something that really touched my heart was that when we had the ceremony initially written, we had talked to our officiant and we said, we're non-religious. Ryan's family is religious.
I could tell that everybody was very religious from Ryan's end.
And so I was like, we don't want to really address it. Like, we just kind of want to leave it out almost completely. We're just going to do a secular ceremony. That's how we're going to do it. And so we were kind of just going to not say anything. And then if anybody said anything, we would just be like, cross that bridge when we get to it.
Did anybody say anything?
No.
I feel like I did. I guess I just wasn't paying attention that much, or it just felt so natural. But or maybe it was just Ryan's religious family. But it felt like there was a little bit of religion pretense somewhere.
Right. So, that was the thing. So, we sent this ceremony to Ryan's dad. And after the ceremony got sent to him, I was like, oh, gosh, Ryan, there is nothing about God in this ceremony. Your father is very, very religious. Is this going to be a problem?
Papa, don't preach.
And
we are in love.
So we said, you know what? Worst case scenario, he rewrites some things, throws in a prayer. It is what it is. We're just gonna.
You thought he'd surprise prayer bomb?
Maybe. I didn't know. I mean, I was thinking of what my family would do. They would totally hijack that entire thing and be like, "Oh yeah, what are you doing?" They were like, my family would be like, obviously you forgot Jesus should be here.
You're making Jesus sad. Stop it.
But I just thought it was so lovely because he didn't really change anything. He added in his personal spot, he was talking about how things don't go according to plan, which of course, that was low-hanging fruit, but beautifully done by Brian Brady. And he just said all we can do in those moments is leave it up to what's supposed to be and up to the Lord. And that was the only thing that he added. And so I just thought it was so precious that he recognized what we were trying to do and didn't trample on it and didn't make a big deal out of it and just respected what we wanted for our ceremony.
Take note, families.
Yeah,
it's not all about you.
As something of an outside observer, I thought it was one of the most beautifully officiated ceremonies ever because I also was it is a very nice symbolic's the wrong word, but it was nice that Ryan's dad was the person to officiate the wedding in that it made the family very involved in the literal bonding of you two through marriage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't tacky. It was very, very hard. That could be tacky if you have an overbearing father-in-law who wants to officiate the ceremony, but it wasn't. It was very beautiful. Brian did a really nice job. There were a few pauses for tears, which was very sweet. In fact, actually, the photographer said that to me when I was setting up. She's like, oh, yeah, the father-in-law is officiating, so, he'll probably get choked up at one or two moments.
Yeah.
So just follow along. Yeah, we'll do that just fine. But
yeah,
I loved it. It was very sweet. It was weirdly right next to my office building, too, as we found out.
Yeah, this venue is really weird. It's in the industrial area of Middletown, and then you just turn off the road and suddenly you're in a fairyland forest. And it's just weird, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And you just come right off the road and there's a warehouse right across the street.
It's literally the way I come to work every single day is down that road crossing there. And I always saw the sign for Harmony Hall, but I never really pictured what was going on there. I only saw the old chimney occasionally. But now every time I drive down there, I can't not see the entire venue. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's the reality perception complex thing from Doctor Who that you just don't notice things.
Yeah.
But the wedding I thought was very beautiful. I'm very happy for you and Ryan. I've been to a lot of weddings where there's a lot more pretense and obligation than actual love, bonding, and stuff. And this was not one of those weddings.
Yeah, I got a lot of really positive feedback. The photographer, when she came, and first of all, she was fantastic. She was so professional and so nice. And there were a couple of bumps along the way during the day where I tried so hard not to be a bridezilla. I was I'm not going to be one of...
You do not seem like you would be a bridezilla.
Well, no, I generally wouldn't be, but I'm just this would be the time, though. If I were about to be an asshole, this would be the one time.
You can get away with it, yeah.
No, true.
In my experience, people aren't assholes for just one day.
Wow, that was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
The true
so basic,
assholes
but so true.
are assholes most of the time. or sporadically throughout their lives.
Wow, I think the next piece of merch that I designed but don't actually sell for this podcast is going to be with that quote. I think.
See,
that's
I
great.
just sweep into the podcast, drop a little knowledge bomb, and walk away.
This is
Just
why we
go
like
about
you
the
so
day.
much, Wallace. I mean, it's one of many reasons we like you so much.
No, exactly. So one of the things that happened was I had talked to the venue about the setup of the ceremony and the chairs, which I know it's like such a small thing. They didn't set them up correctly on the morning of, even though we had talked about it extensively. And I was like, this is exactly what I don't want. And then they set it up exactly the way I didn't want it. And I was like, I don't know where we lost communication.
Well, do share. Like, what was wrong with
Do
the
a chair
chairs?
share.
So
Let's do
I'll
it.
paint a
Chair
picture
share,
for you.
chair share, chair share,
from
chair
Shannon's
share.
wedding is a chair share.
Hat tip to Jonathan Zeppa for that melody. That is actually the
Oh,
melody
that's a soup race.
from Soup Race.
It's a soup race. We should shout out Jonathan Zeppa more often on this podcast.
So
Sorry.
no, it's okay. I'll paint this picture for you. So we've got this pond, right? And then kind of like at the end of the pond, there was this platform of rocks with like a waterfall going into the pond. It was really pretty. And so we were going to be married on top of this platform. And then the seats, when you look on the website, are around the pond on both sides. So first of all, there's an entire pond between half of the guests. And second of all, when you looked at the website, the chairs were pointed across the pond at the other guests rather than, I don't know, maybe the place where we're getting married.
Oh, yeah.
And
So it was a little bit like a Quaker meeting.
it was a little, I felt like we were revivaling. I was like, this is
Maybe
weird.
they thought you were getting married in the pond.
I
Mermaid wedding.
Yeah, right?
mermaid.
I was I told her when I saw that on the website, I was like, I don't want them like that. What can we do? And so I asked her, I said, how about we move all the chairs to one side of the pond and make it so that the pond is kind of to the side and everyone's pointed towards us. So it's not like the focal point. It's more like, a side, like a pretty pond. Like the other problem was if you're sitting like that and you're looking across at the guests, you would have to entirely turn yourself to watch the wedding.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to like get cramps or whatever. I don't know.
It seemed like they were pretty insistent on the bride and groom side too, which left a lot of empty space because it was a very
Right.
small, intimate wedding.
Yeah,
so
no, it was-
There didn't need to be that many chairs.
Exactly. So I showed up 9 a.m. Saturday morning. The chairs on the wrong fucking spot. And I was like, you know what? I said something to my maid of honor. I was like, Cassie, this is exactly what I told them I didn't want, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's my wedding day, and fuck it. I don't care. Noon, Ryan shows up, and he's like, this simply won't do. So
Ryan, who emerged from the pond,
He comes out with a trident and a long beard. This will not do.
So he shows up. He's like, this is exactly what we said we didn't want. And Connor, his best man, is just like, what if we just, I don't know, move the chairs? So I'm like hidden away, but I was outside and I was catching some air, and I spot out of the corner of my eye the entire Brady family just moving all these chairs. And I was a little choked up. I was like, this is adorable. They're moving the chairs for me. And now I know that wasn't necessarily for me. And Ryan was like, this is unacceptable. And but it was really cute to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minor hiccups, but
Yeah.
By the way, Connor is like, I got to know Connor and like all of Ryan's friends. Like, thank God for that bachelor party, because I got to like know Michael and I guess it was Isaiah were sitting at the same table with me, and so we had nicer conversations too. But Connor, I really enjoy quite a bit, and he was like the dance star for the evening.
He and Caden, my nephew, he turns 1 next week. Very cute. No, not next week. In 2 weeks.
Aww.
And they had these noise-canceling headphones
saw
on
that.
him, and he was having a blast. He was just having the greatest time, bouncing around. Everybody was dancing with him. He just started walking, like, on his own. I saw it firsthand yesterday. I didn't believe it because the kid's got, like, no knees. And I was
He
like,
just waddles around.
I was like, this
Waddle.
is Cap. This is absolute Cap.
it's the grandfather from King of the Hill.
Oh yeah, Cotton, where they sewed his feet onto his his shins get removed. That's
Yeah,
it.
he's just running around now, and it's so adorable. But yeah, I mean, everything. Poor Olivia, our flower girl, she got overwhelmed
Yeah, I
at the
could
very
tell.
beginning of after Ryan and I got introduced. And so she had to leave. But I was so touched because over the weekend, or over the week, I got a message from her mom, and she goes to Montessori school. And she came home with this Thanksgiving sheet, and it said, "What am I thankful for?" And it had like the fruit basket on it. Cornucopia? Is that what, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a cornucopia.
And it said, "I was the flower girl in a wedding." And I was like, I'm really glad that this is a positive memory for you, because there was a lot of crying.
I mean, there can be a lot of crying. Something can still be a positive memory. Like you can just. It was a growing moment for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, she was just overwhelmed, and but she did a great job, and everybody came together, and it was all cute.
Yeah. Ryan and Shannon Day was really awesome. So.
Yeah, that was my favorite day.
An underrated thing, too, I hope you don't mind me saying, just having beer and wine available, by the way, was actually, I think, an excellent idea because it prevented anybody from getting sloshed to the point where they could, like, I've been to a lot of weddings where there's way too much liquor.
Especially when there's an open bar.
Yeah.
Although, on one hand, those are the best weddings, but they're also
They're the ones that end up on BuzzFeed articles.
They're the ones where your cousin gets a DUI on the way back.
But you see, this was it was perfect because it was just the right amount and volume of alcohol to get everybody loosened up and happy, but nobody got like
belligerent or
there was
like,
nobody falling
stupid.
asleep on the dance floor or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Well, and I come to find out because Ryan and I are outside, and Isaiah came out and he was like, "Yeah, I just had a rum and Coke." I was like, "Where did you get rum?"
Oh,
like,
you could buy it. was the
I
thing,
didn't realize that when I set it up. I was like, "Yeah, I want to provide wine and beer." I didn't realize they were going to do a cash option for liquor, and I was like, "Well, if I had known that, I would have had somebody getting me tequila." But it's a good thing that they didn't, because I mean, Ryan and I actually didn't get an opportunity to really drink. I had maybe like 2 drinks at the wedding, and then we went to the hotel after and got absolutely obliterated.
Yes.
We walked into the hotel. I'm wearing my wedding dress. He's wearing a suit. And as soon as we walked in, everyone who was in the lobby, because the bar was like right there, so, like started cheering. And the funny thing about this hotel was that I only booked it for mere convenience. I didn't really care how nice it was. It was a Holiday Inn Express. I was like, how bad could it be? Yeah, I know. And you're looking at me like...
Holiday Inn Express with a large bar?
It wasn't that... It was a bar.
Was it like in that whole complex sort of down the street from Fulling Mill Road?
Yeah, like...
Okay.
Yeah, where the Wendy's and the Taco Bell are.
That's
Man,
not the worst
middle
idea.
managers in Central PA are getting crunk at the Holiday Inn Express.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So...
it's good that it was like in a more isolated, because a family member's wedding of mine, where things really did get crunk for a number of reasons. It was like the Crown Plaza downtown where everybody was staying.
Oh, God.
Oh, yes.
And so not only was the bar like already very big there, but it was Saturday evening and 2nd Street was a quick walk away. So I have a friend who was invited to the wedding, whose name I won't say, who actually went missing at one point at like 1 a.m.
Oh my God.
Because he went just bar hopping down 2nd Street and drinking as much as possible. And we found him lying down on the bathroom floor of the Harrisburg Hilton at like 2 a.m. singing to himself.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's funny in retrospect, but it wasn't. This is why I'm happy this was not the case at your wedding. There was no crunkage going on.
Well, this hotel, we went to go take a shower before our date on Friday night, and it was cold and like wouldn't get hot. So I went down to the front desk and I was like, "Hey, it's not a big deal right now, but I'm getting literally married tomorrow, and I will need a hot shower." And they were like, "Oh, well, there's a hockey tournament this weekend, and all the kids just got back from their game, and so they are probably all currently showering." And I was like, "Okay, great." And then the next day, the martial arts tournament children showed up. And so there were dozens of small children running around this hotel at all times. And so when we got to the bar, it was all of the parents of all of these children at the bar.
Yep.
And it was hilarious. One of them was teaching Ryan karate. Another one put a ping pong ball in my pants pocket. I don't know what happened that night.
It's so
but
funny
it was
you're
fantastic.
saying this because I hear this literally from Lauren every weekend around this time. It's always hockey tournaments. that kill her. She's like, there are a bunch of shitty hockey kids in my lobby and they won't leave. And she says that basically what happens is because their parents are overwhelmed and babysitters for an entire weekend, they drop them off in the lobby and then they go get drunk at the bar.
Yep.
And then you have a bunch of cantankerous 13 to 17-year-olds running around wreaking havoc in there. And it's always hockey tournaments. Like, I don't know about I haven't heard her complain about martial arts tournaments, but it's like every weekend it's like, how there's another hockey tournament and I hate my life.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just overall an amazing time. And it like feels like it didn't happen. It feels like a dream, but it was magical.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well,
and I looked like a princess.
You did
I
look
was
like a princess.
Oh my God. I can't wait for the pictures.
You look like a
so
punk
good.
princess because like the tattoos were nicely showcased too
Yes.
by your dress. I've actually been pulling some, if you'd like some semi-pictures, I've been pulling some screenshots from the video. It won't be the same as your photographer, but it was very beautiful. So.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And thank you, Hal, for doing that
You're
for us. That was
welcome.
very nice. Ryan's maternal grandmother was not able to make it for the wedding. She would have had to travel from New Jersey, and it just would have been a little too much for her. So that's going to be a nice little Christmas surprise for her if we can pull it together before then.
I mean, I'll have it in like a week if you wanted
beautiful.
to. So.
And I was telling Ryan's family about that. I was like, I asked my friend to record it and so that we can show Nanny, and they literally burst into tears.
Yeah, I got all the speeches. Unfortunately, I chose a smaller gigabyte card, and I ran out of tape during the father-daughter dance.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
fine.
so I just I cut the father-daughter dance short, and I got a minute of the mother-son dance.
Well, that's all the important stuff.
Yeah, and then that was the end of it. So
No, that was great. Thank you so much.
So anyway, now that we've talked about Shannon's wedding,
Yes,
it
thank
is
you,
Thanksgiving
Wallace.
week.
I know you're sitting here like I wasn't there and I don't know.
Awkward.
No, but
I am
You
so
just
happy
have to
for you.
imagine the fire.
no, I
I
was
can just imagine the drunk parents in the hotel lobby.
There were not drunk people really.
No,
at
when he's
least at
talking about the
wedding.
hotel.
The hotel
Oh, the
lobby.
hotel, yeah.
The hotel had liquor for sure. I ordered plenty of it, and I spent enough money that I definitely had liquor, if I recall. So,
Tequila.
yay for me.
But yeah, we figured that maybe we would talk about things that we were thankful for this week, since it is
Yeah.
Thanksgiving week, and not all of us have great memories of Thanksgiving. So I'm kind of like half and half. There have been some Thanksgivings that were really good. There have been some where things devolved very quickly into garbage.
I don't know what gets into the water on Thanksgiving. It's like, I don't know. I guess it's just getting all those people together at the same time, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, I think whenever you have a gathering of people who know each other so intimately,
Yeah, that's true.
they know exactly which buttons to press.
Oh,
Yeah, especially when you add alcohol into the mix, which there are a number of people in my Thanksgiving, which is fine. Like, it's a vacation day, enjoy yourself. But then, like, if you've been drinking rum since 10 in the morning, by the time the third quarter of the 8:15 football game rolls around,
Yeah.
it all just comes out. And
yeah.
So
The last 5 years, I've only had Thanksgiving with my dad. It's just been like me, my dad,
that's
and then
nice.
whoever I was dating at the time. So he makes the turkey and then we make all the sides. So it's a pretty good system and keeps the drama to a minimum. There's still drama because it's my dad, but you know.
One of my coworkers, I was talking to her, one of the part-time ladies, because her and her wife just do Thanksgiving with themselves every year. Like, they just sit in, they'll make a small meal for themselves, and they'll watch football. And I was like, that actually sounds really nice and low-key. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you two can do that.
Yeah, and one of the things so Ryan last year spent Thanksgiving with his family and I spent it with my dad. And one of the other little traditions that Ryan and I have started is that we watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, I love that.
Right, but it used to be such a magical thing, and now it's not so magical anymore and not as fun as it used to be. But we do love to be like, hey, look, another lip syncer, and hey, look, this was kind of weird. Why did they do that? So,
Oh, no, you're getting cynical as you're getting older.
no, we just judge it. We're just like last year. Well, it's something I miss about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is that they used to, for all the performances, it used to be really famous people that would sing classic Christmas songs. And I
Mariah
thought that
Carey.
was the most like magical part of it. But like the one year BB Rexa was on and she did her song "Baby I'm Jealous," and I was like, this is not a Christmas song.
I don't know what anything that you just said is.
I was about to say, BB Rex, is that like
Baby, I'm
T-Rex's grandma?
Yeah. But it's like this song that's like super pop and like at the club and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, this is Christmas. It's not. I don't know.
Well, yeah. My impression of modern day Macy's Day Parade is like you get serenaded by, B2K and whoever.
BTS.
Whoever
Get your boy band straight.
Right, BTS. So when you
Whoever the
you were thinking
latest
of the
American
BTK
Idol
killer.
is.
That's what that is. I was like, I've heard BTK somewhere.
I was like, hold on a goddamn minute.
Have you heard their collab with Ted Bundy?
There's a lot of BBs involved because the first thing that came to mind was, does he mean BB Mac, the Australian guitar
Or
trio?
BB
band?
Netanyahu?
Oh man, now
Oh
we're
my
getting
gosh.
political.
Swerve. Oh my god. What
Wallace
a
is
time.
the BTK killer.
Oh my god. You can
I've been
go
unmasked.
join Ted Cruz
I
as
think-
the Zodiac killer.
I think BTK was the Long Island one, right? Because they caught him when I was going to college in Long Island, and I had no idea who the BTK killer was, but it was like a big deal, like New York-ish, right? For BTK?
I feel like maybe I just know about too many serial killers, because when I think of BTK, I think of California, but that was the Zodiac.
Yeah, they never caught the Zodiac killer.
And the Golden State Killer was also in California. There was a lot of California.
And my particular
serial
favorite,
killers.
the dating show killer. Are
Oh
you
yeah,
all familiar with
I
that
heard
one?
about that. Well, how did
Rodney
we get here?
Alcala. He just died recently in prison.
Yeah. And so speaking of killers on Thanksgiving, there's that movie coming out
Yeah.
that we were just talking
that
about
segue was
like 40 minutes ago.
incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Because we were talking about this right before we started the podcast.
Yeah. Dang, I'm a performer at heart, I just know how to tell a story.
So I didn't know they were actually making a movie of Thanksgiving. And just like a programming note to everybody listening, in case you don't know, the Eli Roth movie Thanksgiving that's just come out is based on a fake trailer that they did for Grindhouse 16 years ago, which was incredibly disturbing but very fun to watch. And it's interesting because Machete was also one of those fake trailers. So the trailers that they did were so good they've spawned their own like full feature-length movies. And I was shocked to find out that they actually made one movie for it, and it looks really good. And apparently it's getting like rave reviews too for what should have been a weird...
I think it's probably relatable, right? A conversation we just kind of had about
Oh, yeah.
Thanksgivings being fraught.
Yeah.
It feels like a good opportunity
kind of
for a
like the
slasher
joke
film.
about
Yeah.
Thanksgiving nowadays is that you have to fend off racist drunken rants by your uncle and smile and nod.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about I was watching the trailer and it's like weirdly star-studded. And in not like, A-list actors, I guess, in my opinion, but Patrick Dempsey's in it. I'm pretty sure.
I saw that.
And that guy, I don't know what his name is, but he was on Suits. He played Louis Litt. He's in it, and that's really weird. And I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but those are
Freddie
the two.
Prinze Jr. maybe?
Is he in that?
No, I have no idea.
He's a star.
He was a star. Matthew
Oh my
Lillard.
gosh.
I'm just going down the list of
Oh
all
my
the-
gosh. I didn't get a chance to see Five Nights at Freddy's also, but I've never played the game.
Yeah, same here.
I actually watched that on Peacock.
Was it good?
No.
Oh.
If you really want to experience that, see Willy's Wonderland.
I was
it's
just
a
going to
far
say the
better
exact
film.
same thing. Like Willy's Wonderland, also not a great movie, but it has Nicolas Cage in it in a I've seen it a couple of times. Again, not a great movie, but the exact same concept. And Nicolas Cage took the role specifically because his character has 0 lines of dialogue. It's all emoting, and Cage pulls it off really well.
No, I
think.
actually like Willy's Wonderland.
I'm going to have to check that out.
It's not a great movie, but it's entertaining. Whereas the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, I suppose if you played the game,
It was
Yeah.
probably,
you probably can relate to all the little Easter eggs. But
Yeah.
It's
in
just
terms of like a narrative, it made no sense.
This is why horror survival games do not generally work as movies because the stakes are lower. If you're playing, I think honestly the only good horror survival movie I've seen was the original Silent Hill. And even that, it's a little bit different because if you're playing a video game like that, part of the atmosphere is the fact that you are the character and you can die based on your decisions. But a movie is more of a passive experience.
Yeah.
So unless you're offering something like different, new, or like more empathy for the characters, I think would be the best thing to do about it. Giant animatronic things coming to life and killing is not going to be quite as jarring to you as if you
I think part of the problem is that the movie version of Five Nights at Freddy's is PG.
Oh, yeah. PG-13. Here's the thing. When I worked at the movies, I learned very quickly that if a horror movie had a rating of PG-13, it was not worth watching. And that is a hard belief that I will die on that hill.
It's just not scary.
No.
Yeah.
And they tried to shoehorn, which from what I understand, according to Josh, my partner, it is part of the game that there's like some childhood trauma involved. But they really tried to lean into that, and they shoehorned like what is supposed to be a poignant story about like a sibling trying to look out for his younger sister and dealing with childhood trauma and all this other stuff. They tried to shoehorn that in with like kind of a half-assed slasher movie. And it's, for me at least, it just didn't work.
See, I feel like the impression I've gotten is that like if you're basing something off of a massive IP, like Five Nights at Freddy's is like, I've seen toys for sale for the video game series. It was so popular. I think there's a little bit of laziness involved because you've got people who will come to see it just because of the IP it's based off of. Whereas Willy's Wonderland had no such guarantee whatsoever, so it almost forced them to try to make a better movie, I think.
Going back to something you said earlier about horror movies or like the slasher films. No, going back to what you were saying. Sorry. The Five Nights at Freddy's, like one of the things about the survival horror games is about, being the character. And I think that one of the best ways I've seen to get around that is definitely like the found footage trope, which I don't hate as much as I hate other tropes. Like I've found some found footage films that I actually really enjoyed. Like I actually enjoyed The Blair Witch.
Oh yeah, Blair Witch. So that's interesting. Like when I was a kid, because Blair Witch came out when I was 13, I want to say, and I dove really deep into the whole internet campaign that they had on it. And it scared the shit out of me where I was afraid to walk the dog through our woods at night. And then I finally saw the movie and I was like, that was the dumbest thing ever because I was 13 and it didn't play to like my Halloween slasher once.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I think it's a fantastic slow burn. I don't even know if I'd call it a horror movie. It's just like a thriller almost.
Yeah, I think it does a really great job or found footage in general, like that does a much better job of integrating the audience into the experience.
Yeah, if it's done well. Like actually another Josh recommendation from about a year ago was this found footage. It was a documentary about found footage horror movies that was on Shudder, I want to say. Because Josh is very good at recommending horror documentaries to me. And that was very interesting because they talk about the psychology of the found footage ones, and they talk a lot about what you were saying. Like, it puts you in the shoes of the person, and it makes you feel more vulnerable if it's done correctly. Like, there are a number of, it's so overblown because Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch were so big. But you occasionally get good ones, like the Houses That October Built, I think is awesome. I enjoy both of the Grave Encounters movies, too. Yeah, what are some other good ones? I've heard The Last Broadcast is very good, but I've never seen it.
There's a really good one from Spain called REC, R-E-C.
I've heard wonderful things about REC.
That on...
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
It's like a news crew responding to a high-rise apartment fire. And in the middle of it, they realize there's been an outbreak of like a zombie attack.
Oh.
And it's just found footage of this news crew trying to survive the night. And it is really well made. One of the best found footage films by my estimation.
I've heard marvelous things about it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Cannibal Holocaust?
Those are two words I have never heard in the same
you've never
sentence
heard of
before.
Cannibal Holocaust?
No.
I'm surprised. Have you heard of this movie, Wallace?
What is this one about?
So I want to say this was also a Spanish found footage movie, but this was from the 70s, I want to say. And
I've heard about this. This is the one, it's like, it goes all out. There's like a baby right?
I have never seen it, but I've heard things about it. But like the famous production stories are that like found footage was still a fairly new phenomenon in the 70s, and the filmmakers tried to hype this as a real documentary as much as possible, similar to Blair Witch. And they succeeded so much they were actually arrested because they thought that they had filmed an actual cannibal tribe in South America killing, mutilating, and eating people. It is not real, but I've heard it's very, very, as Wallace was saying, very violent and very jarring. So I've never really sought it out, but yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that was like the granddaddy of found footage horror movies.
I love how quickly we devolved into horror films from Thanksgiving.
I was just thinking that too, because I also wanted to mention I saw Megan for the first time finally.
Was it good?
I
haven't
loved
seen it yet.
It was very well made. It was very interesting. You kind of saw where it was going to go the entire time, but it didn't matter because it was so tongue-in-cheek. It didn't take itself too seriously. And there was a great payoff at the end. Like there's an excellent Chekhov's gun that comes to play at the very end of the movie that had me actually cheering by myself in my living room as I was watching it. It was I really thought Megan was a fun movie.
I've been doing a thing lately where if a movie doesn't grab me or if it annoys me actively, I will just stop watching it.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Megan was one of those movies.
Oh, no. Well, I've got like two different, now I can like come to the middle. My thing about, and so I've talked about this on the podcast before, is like I have become super picky about what I consume, like with movies.
We only
and
have
books.
So much time on this earth.
Yeah. So something that I had heard a lot about, and because the third movie is coming out within the next couple of months, I tried Terrifier.
Okay.
And I got 15 minutes into it, and the funny thing is, like a couple years ago I probably would have sat through the whole thing because that, it's kind of fascinating, and it's one of those like car accident movies that you can't really look away.
Yeah.
But I was a little bored by it the first, and I didn't feel any stakes really. And I don't know. Have either of you guys seen it?
I've seen Terrifier and Terrifier 2 multiple times. It's weird. I don't want to say they're great movies because I don't think they are, but I think what they do very well. They're good for first-time viewing, I think, and I still stand by, I think the first movie is pretty good because it keeps it simple. It's really just limited mostly to one like apartment building. And I don't know how far you got into the movie. Like
I only got to the part probably like a couple minutes after the pizza shop.
Yeah, the pizza shop's the very beginning. Have you seen the movie, Wallace? Does anybody care if I talk about spoilers in the movie?
No, because I read the whole plot online because I didn't want to actually see it, but I did want to know what happened.
So spoiler alert for like a 10-year-old stupid horror movie. But one of the things I did enjoy about Terrifier was that the girl is a false protagonist.
Right.
And she does get killed about a third of or 40% through the movie, which you weren't necessarily expecting, but the movie opens with her sister talking about like what happened to her. So you assume that the sister gets added to the mix at some point. Like there are things I like about it. Terrifier 2 has a lot of very good sequences in it, but for some reason they made it into a 2.5-hour movie. And every time, like I tried to watch it again during spooky season this year, and I couldn't make it through both times because after like an hour and 10 minutes, I was like, man, I'm only halfway through this. I don't think I can deal with this much more torture porn.
Well, yeah, and so one of my things was like, it's just gratuitous. It doesn't really, like...
That's actually what Glessner told me, too, because here's a fun story. Lauren Rivera, who's the star of Terrifier 2, has made movies with Andrew Glessner.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she was the star of Stalked, the like 30-minute version that they just did a feature version, too.
I have to check that out. I still haven't.
Glessner has talked a lot about working with her because he said that she was really great. Obviously, by the time they did the feature-length version of Stalked, she was too big for them, and they had to submit queries through her agent. But he's talked a couple of times that he said even though he had an interest in seeing Lauren Rivera in like her big feature breakthrough movie, he wasn't interested in seeing 2.5 hours of torture mutilation, essentially.
And I think that's funny coming from me because I've seen all of the Saw films, but I think...
It's a different thing.
Well, and that's the thing is like you have to think about, what's your definition of gratuitous? And for me, like the Saw films, I felt that the gratuitous, I mean, it might be gratuitous, but I felt like the violence was necessary for the plot that they were trying to tell.
So here's how I feel about the Saw movies. The build-up is everything, because they lay out right there for like 2 minutes before this horrible mutilation thing is going to happen, that this is going to happen, and so you have a couple of minutes to brace yourself and build up more fear.
Yeah.
Which also they're not as gory as Terrifier, weirdly enough, and it's plot relevant, and so the Saw movies are, again, it's a tough thing to take, but they are a lot different than just Terrifier just beats you over the head with brutal thing after brutal thing. You can't process one because the next one starts immediately, which I was entertained by the first time. But it looks like Wallace has something to add. Sorry, Wallace.
Oh, I have nothing to add. I have literally nothing to say about this subject.
So back to things we were thankful about.
I will say, Megan, there's something about these very slick, like, horror movies that are the kind of Blumhouse ones, at least recent Blumhouse movies.
Yeah.
Where they're really slick. They're longer than they need to be. You know, they all have like a sheen, a patina of trauma.
There's one that came out, The Night House.
I love The Night House.
I've not seen that.
I don't think that's a Blumhouse movie.
Are you sure?
I could be wrong, but it's got Rebecca Hall in it, who is a fabulous actress.
Rebecca, it's funny, I just watched The Prestige a couple of nights ago again, and I was kind of like, Rebecca Hall really had a moment there for like 5 or 6 years where she was in a lot of movies like The Town or Iron Man 3, but she's kind of disappeared from...
I don't know. She kind of comes and goes. Night House was only a year or two old, but she's got I would recommend Rebecca Hall. Like, one of her unseen gems is this movie called Christine, about Christine Chubbuck, who was a TV reporter in Florida in the 70s and famously died by suicide on live TV.
Oh, so like network-ish, yeah.
Yeah, it's got some network vibes, but it's also got like the character clearly is like dealing with some kind of bipolar disorder, maybe BPD. It's not really clear, but
you were right. It's not Blumhouse.
I thought so. Don't challenge me on my movie trivia. No, I know my stuff.
No, Wallace knows everything. I trust him.
I will let you think whatever you want to think, but
you made an interesting point I did want to go back to too, was about like the length of some of these Blumhouse movies,
and not just Blumhouse either. Like, just the length of mainstream movies right now is just like all of them are far longer than they need to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. So a person who like he's a bit of a polarizing character among filmmakers is Kevin Smith. Some of his movies are terrible. Some of them are, have their charm to them. But he's always a weird wealth of like very insightful filmmaking knowledge. And he said on the original Clerks commentary that the thing he hated about comedy movies was the ones that tried to be too long, because he was like, comedy and horror really should be about 90 minutes straight up, because there's only so much you can take as an audience. Like, leave the 2-hour movies to Oscar bait. Give me a good 90-minute comedy or horror movie any day. And that was exactly my problem with Terrifier 2, is it's 2.5 fucking hours of...
I can't imagine sitting through 2.5 hours worth of torture porn.
Yeah.
I don't like torture porn movies, generally speaking. I can't imagine sitting through 2.5 hours of it.
Yeah, it's just there's only so much you can, and similar with comedy too. Like Kevin Smith was saying that like the physical act of laughing actually takes a decent amount out of you. It's kind of like riding a roller coaster. You don't realize it because you're having fun, but it is a bit of a taxing experience. And if you have a movie that is a comedy that's very long, you're just going to be tired of it by the end of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point.
I'm not the kind of person that's like, I don't like to have kind of just like arbitrary rules for things. Like, there are absolutely long movies that I love. There Will Be Blood is like 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah,
like but a movie has to earn that. And I feel like Megan was like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Was it that long?
Yeah, I got through like an hour and 10 or so.
You know what it was? I took a break in the middle of it, so I probably, because I had to go to work or something, and then came back and watched the rest of it, and that's probably why I didn't notice
and
it.
I need to stop beating up on the Megan movie. It's fine. It's as I like to call it,
Wallace hates Megan.
It's a middling movie.
Yes,
it is middling.
I will 100%
and I
agree with
hate
that.
middling movies. Either be outrageously bad, like John Waters.
Yeah.
Like, be outrageously bad or be good.
Right.
But don't give me the middling. I am so sick and tired of middling
The worst thing
movies.
you can have is an okay movie. You're 100% right.
And to me, anyway, Megan is an okay movie. I have seen that same plot so many times before. The only difference is it's got really great, like, advertising level cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
It is so well shot that you mistake it for a good movie.
The synergy behind it was
But the
also a big
script
thing.
is terrible. And the scares aren't effective at all.
Oh, no,
and
I
it
didn't.
Just like...
Weirdly enough, I didn't find it to be a scary movie. I just thought it was an entertaining
and it lards
movie.
on this like outrageous trauma. The parents died. Why does every single movie have to deal with that in such a way that it starts to feel crass to me?
So
it no longer feels like they're engaging with the thing that is real. And with that, I will back away from my rant.
From your pulpit. So a movie that, like, because I think this fits into both of the things you were talking about, where it both earns its length and also deals with trauma, because I think we've talked about this before, but Midsommar was a good example, I thought, of a movie that, because Midsommar is probably about 2 hours, 10 minutes, right? And I was never bored by the movie. It did interesting things. You know, I suspected more trauma was coming, and it did, and also had an ending that surprised me a little bit. And there are a lot of layers to that movie that I've enjoyed, so I've watched it a couple of times.
Yeah, I feel the same way about that and Hereditary. I know you are tired of hearing me talk about Hereditary.
I will
but
watch
I will die on that
Hereditary
hill.
again at some point to give it another chance.
Believe it or not, Josh was very resistant to see Hereditary, and he finally did, and he was like, oh, it was okay.
That's exactly how I felt about Hereditary.
Which I couldn't quite understand, but perhaps it was overhyped for him.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like it's overhyped. Sometimes it's just the mood you're in. Like when you're watching something, like you have to be receptive, and sometimes it has to just come at the right time too. Like there are so many different factors that make movie not just movie, but any sort of arts enjoyment like process with you or something. Like if you saw a movie on a date that you got broken up with afterwards, you're gonna hate that movie.
Yeah, it took me a long time to come back from We Didn't Start the Fire, and there's a story there. But
the song,
the song, yeah, it was the reason why I had to fire a person.
Because he didn't start the fire.
But you did start the fire.
No, it was just the song that was playing when he did the stupid thing, and it was relevant to what he was doing. So
and I have another rant about that song too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please rant away.
It's just like to me it reads like baby boomers who don't want to take responsibility for their actions.
Ooh, that's a hot take, my
we
boy.
we did not start the fire.
Billy
Okay.
Joel kind of agrees with that, by the way. He hates that song.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, I saw a clip the other day because they were talking about, was it Fall Out Boy just did a
Yes,
cover?
I was just gonna say that.
Which is terrible. I hate it because they tried to update it and it's very pandering. But in my opinion, anyway.
But I think it's kind of telling. We're in the sense that like, with Fall Out Boy doing their own rendition of it, when they say they didn't start the fire, they really didn't start the fire.
Yeah.
As opposed to, when it was originally written.
I like Wallace's interpretation. It was like boomer-esque, like, we didn't do anything. It's y'all's fault.
Not my problem.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. We were talking about this at work the other night too, because I know you're not a millennial, right, Shannon? You're Gen Z.
No, I'm I'm a Gen Z, but I'm like the oldest Gen Z you can possibly be.
When were you born?
96.
Yeah, because there's an auditor I work with who was 95 who said he's like at the tail end of Gen Z or Gen Y. But I was reading a couple of articles where like some things that we really enjoy. The article was specifically about Taika Waititi fatigue, because apparently nobody likes his new movie from what I've heard, and not boomers, but Gen Zs have sort of railed against like him. And I didn't realize there was a burgeoning movement where TikTokers are making fun of Lin-Manuel Miranda for being out of touch now, and that made me
hilarious.
very sad. Like,
well, yeah.
I mean, it might have been a little bit fatigued because he was everywhere for a couple of years, but it really is making me feel
It doesn't
old.
take much these days to get roasted on TikTok.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So I just don't use TikTok.
Yeah, it's your generation.
Yeah, no, I love TikTok. I think I see a lot of shit, like horrible content that is just not good. But every once in a while, a diamond appears from the rough, and it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then I like it, and
a diamond from the cesspool.
Yes, Ryan and we do this thing called TikTok dumps. So I watch TikTok like
on the toilet.
Well, yeah. First of all, yes, I do. Like, you guys don't use your phone on the toilet. And
I use my phone on the toilet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll go like 3 or 4 weeks of going through TikTok, and I will come up with maybe 10 to 15 TikToks that I want to show Ryan. And so we will sit down, and I will show him every single TikTok that I found for him. And then another 3 or 4 weeks will go by, and then we'll do another one. And that's just our routine now.
You're mining.
I am.
You're
I'm
mining
hard
TikTok
out here.
for the best content.
This marriage rests on my shoulders, guys. It's all good.
Whereas Josh and I, we do, Josh more so than me, but he does something similar. He will scan Instagram for adorable dog and cat videos. And that is our like nightly wind down routine.
Aww.
It's part of it of like us watching the same videos over and over again.
So that's the thing, though, is like sometimes in these TikToks, the ones I also save for Ryan are really cute animals. So like every once in a while, like a baby Highland cow will come up and be wearing like a Santa hat, and I'll be like, that is the best thing in the entire world. I don't know.
I'll share a lot of Instagram like dog videos with Lauren, because I do not see my partner quite as often as you two get to, although she just left the job that was driving her crazy on Friday.
Huzzah.
So hopefully life will get better. But a funny thing that did happen a couple of days ago, we constantly like we share cartoons with each other that we think are funny, like a lot of Nathan Pyle's Strange Planet and things like that. And
I like Nathan Pyle.
like 2 days ago, I shared a cartoon with her that was like, it was a 4-paneler, and it was one guy being like, my toxic trait is that I make plans and never follow through on them. And then a woman's like, my toxic trait is, I don't cook for myself. And then they have a Komodo dragon. My toxic trait is that I bite people and inject a slow-moving venom into them that makes them bleed out after 3 days.
I love that.
And I listened to Nickelback.
I love that so much.
And well, when I sent it to Lauren was like, no lie. I actually downloaded this and was going to send it to you today, but got too busy.
Isn't that so sweet?
But then it happened again, too. Like, I sent her a Nathan Pyle, a Strange Planet cartoon about, like, a drive-thru, and she's like, get the fuck out of here. You're not going to believe this, but I was also going to send this to you. And I'm like, I kind of believe you, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that, and it can't be that our phones are so close together that that they're reading it, because we don't spend that much time with each other.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for my friend Hal and for my friend Wallace. And I'm grateful for Starbucks. And I am grateful.
Yeah, I think that's a good, like, we still have like 25-ish minutes.
There we go. We have time
because we give Wallace
get around
extra time.
To the fucking point.
We can meander through many other subjects.
Wallace and Liz always get extra time.
Yeah.
Ryan, not so much. Although Suji was still the longest episode, because that was an hour and a half.
I know. That was a really good episode.
Yeah.
I think that, so one of the cool things about this Thanksgiving is that when we're done with dinner, we're driving to Baltimore because our honeymoon starts on Friday. Right. So
and I'm going to have 4 cats in my house.
Yep.
I'm going to have
Pray
4
for
cats.
Hal. So, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. I've never been on a cruise before, so that's going to be a very interesting experience.
You'll enjoy it.
Have either of you been on a cruise?
No.
One time when I was 18, and I assume that in the last 20 years, cruise technology has gotten a little better. The only thing, it was a little shaky, even with all the stabilizers, and it did take like a few days to find my sea legs. And then also when I got off, when the cruise was over, it took a day or two to just get back to like normal. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. Like, all the food was included. I wasn't able to drink because I was 18, but apparently all the booze was included too. So
they're not included on ours. You can get like a beverage package, but we were doing the math, and we'd have to like drink. We would have to both have 4 drinks a day to get it to break even.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
So you basically would have to get cirrhosis in order to make it worth your while.
I was like, for this to be, so we were just like, we're just going to pay by the drink. I don't care.
Actually, like my parents go on a lot of cruises, and this is a problem that pervades a lot of their cruises, but they're not really heavy drinkers, so they don't care that much. I have a lot of witnesses who are quite heavy drinkers who are also cruisers, and the best solution I've heard to this is what you do is you take a bottle of mouthwash and you add green food coloring to it. You take a bottle of mouthwash, you empty it, you fill it with vodka or gin or tequila, and then you add green food coloring to it so it looks like the mouthwash, and that way you can just drink as much as you want in your cabin, and, it'll evade because they're not going to taste your booze. They're just going to see if it's green or not. So
someone has put a lot of thought into this, and more power to them.
This is the interesting thing about dealing with older witnesses on a daily basis is you hear so many interesting stories and so many workarounds because they've really thought about this.
Yeah.
I mean, respect, because for a long time, I did not have internet at my apartment because I thought it was a scam, which, I mean, it kind of is. Yeah, it's a duopoly or a monopoly, depending on where you live.
Oh, don't even get me started on
that. It's only just becoming a duopoly in my neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. It was a monopoly in my neighborhood for the longest time. They only had CenturyLink, which then got bought out by some other company. And then my internet cost $80-$90 a month and was extremely slow, and it kept going up, and I was like, the internet is not improving in quality.
Yes.
So why am I paying more for it?
Well, I want to finish my little anecdote.
Sorry, Wallace.
But no, exactly what you said. My response to that, circa about 2016, was I just canceled internet altogether. And instead of using the internet at my house, I used my phone's mobile hotspot, and I had all these workarounds where I would, for example, if I wanted to watch Netflix on my TV, I bought one of those $5 adapter cables, and I would stream Netflix from my phone onto my TV through the HDMI adapter cable.
That is hilarious.
And I did this for 4 years.
Woo!
I only got internet back again when I moved into my house.
Oh my God.
But for all that time, I was saving $120 a month for 4 years.
It doesn't seem like there's a rhyme or reason why. My bill for Comcast internet is different every month, and I don't know why exactly. Some months
it's a scam.
It is a scam.
We do not regulate these companies, and so they can get away with it.
Yeah.
But that's why, Fios, they actually did a huge construction project in my neighborhood, putting in the fiber optic lines for Fios. I want to say over the summer, because they dug up a portion of my yard and did not properly reseed it. But from what I've heard, it's only $25 a month, and it's faster. So
I will add, the reason why I got internet back at my house was because they added Fios in downtown Harrisburg. And because now there's some competition between Comcast and Verizon, it's $25 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up, so T-Mobile launched, they launched Wi-Fi in my area, but the only Wi-Fi from T-Mobile that's available is not really Wi-Fi, it's 5G internet. And so, but it's unlimited.
You mean the stuff that's giving you COVID?
Basically.
Yeah.
And so it's still slow, but it's half the price I was paying for the other internet. So I can't really complain, but I keep telling Ryan we have to move. It's absurd. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. Are you still going to stay in Duncannon now that you are a married couple
now
of
that
repute?
The wedding is over, after the honeymoon, the house search begins.
Good luck.
So yeah, we already have a pre-qualification
nice.
for the mortgage and all that stuff. So, and Ryan's brother recommended a realtor to us, and so that's gonna start happening here soon. In my opinion, sooner rather than later, because I don't want to drive 45 minutes to work anymore.
Yeah, or to do a podcast.
Well, that's true. Well, the other thing was Friday night I left work at 6:00. Got home at 7:30. That was ridiculous. There was a crash on 22-322.
Yes, there were two crashes because my witnesses, who are generally very reliable, were coming from Mechanicsburg, and they came right at 5:00, which is the edge of when they're supposed to come. And they were like, it was ridiculous. 581 had a crash, so we went on 81, but then 81 had a crash. So
yeah, it was absurd.
Yeah.
So very much looking forward to moving to a place with better internet.
Yeah.
And that's a little closer to work. So
that's something
the
to be
plan.
thankful for.
That's right, to be thankful for. The whole point of the goddamn episode.
After a year of doing this, you would figure how our brains work.
Oh, I know.
Oh, we
it's
just
fine.
talk about survival horror and horror
I'm
movies.
thankful for survival horror. I'm thankful for Ari Aster, who wrote Hereditary.
I still have not
movie.
seen Beau is Afraid. Damn it, we're going back to horror movies again.
I'm also thankful for. I thought I was going to think of something I was thankful for before I got to the word for, but I didn't. So
I am thankful, honestly. Like I think about this quite a bit when I'm taking, because I like to take walks to like clear my mind, and I also talk to myself on my walks, which is weird if you happen to encounter another person, but I'll never see them again, so I don't care.
that's right.
But something I've talked about is like, especially like I've had a lot of struggles in the last year with a number of things, like health issues. You know, my girlfriend's work schedule, which has not been the greatest the last 7 or 8 months. But in general, like I have to keep reminding myself, I'm like, I should be thankful. I have a lot of things. I have a nice house. I have a great job that I really enjoy. A great circle of friends who are all artists too, and great collaborators. So who will not just collaborate with me, but also do their own wonderful art. And a lot of venues and like opportunities to make art, like doing stand-up, doing improv, or the Vid Jam, doing movie stuff. So
Yeah.
I have opportunities and avenues to express myself in any way I want to. I have a really good circle of friends who I think have my back. Have both of my parents still alive who I spend a lot of time with and have a good connection with. A great girlfriend and a great job and house. So
Yeah.
But then you think about all the bad things happening in your life.
Stop. Just swear. Yeah, no, I totally get you there, though. And, like, I definitely... So something that Ryan and I talked about, he asked me if I had any post-wedding resolutions. And I was like, post-wedding resolutions? Who has those?
He's doing an exit interview for your relationship.
Yeah, right.
As we're going into marriage from the relationship, how do you think this can improve?
Or he's trying to generate the first 5-year plan.
I know, right?
How satisfied were you? You were satisfied with our relationship. Agree, very agree, or strongly disagree? Which one?
A post-coital survey.
God.
This is getting...
We ended up talking about so he talked a lot about like self-love and like he's working on like loving himself and having more self-esteem and that kind of thing.
Aww.
And so we actually we had a couples massage the day before the wedding. And so we were laying in there and I was like thinking to myself, and I said to Ryan in the middle of the massage, I was like, you know, something that you might try is like when you're getting a massage and somebody's working on like a particular part of your body. So like, for example, like your hands, as they're working on your hands, you think to yourself like, oh, I'm grateful for my hands. My hands allow me to do all sorts of things. And like I was thinking to myself like, my hands allow me to hold my friends and to do my job and to, you know, do so many things because I have hands and I'm very grateful for my hands. And then, you know, they move on to your legs. And I'm like, my feet have been in London and Paris. And I think that's really cool. I have the coolest feet in the room, maybe.
I love that because that's like, so I have like, as grateful as I am for a number of wonderful things in my life, I have a lot of trouble loving my body particularly. And I like that idea. Like, I'm grateful for my feet because they can take me on walks and go for runs with friends and take me from one place to another. And
at the risk of sounding like super like hippy dippy about it, but like when you start to love like your exterior, it can sometimes bleed into the interior, you know? And so, I mean, just a little exercise there that, you know.
I love that exercise.
It doesn't have to be when you're getting a massage, but I was like, well, what else are you doing while you're getting a massage? Just thinking. So you might as well think about good things and being relaxed and enjoying the time that you're taking to have good things happen to your body.
It's a warm hug for yourself.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
See, we got around to the thankful things.
Yeah. With a lot of horror movies wedged in between.
Hey, I'm thankful for horror movies. They keep me on my toes.
Yeah.
You know, they build character.
Yeah.
They also help me decide what I'll do when I'm inevitably stalked by a serial killer. So, or what not to do, more likely. So, anyway.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Not to put you on the spot, Wallace, but do you have anything that you're thankful for? Or?
I have too many things to be thankful for,
Yeah.
which I am. That is such a there's such a privilege. Like I am in a very privileged position right now in my life, and obviously I have a loving partner, Josh. I have relative stability in most areas of my life. Like recently, I had a conversation with somebody where I'm like, literally, in terms of major conflicts, I don't have any major conflicts in my life right now. I mean, sure, there's always stuff that could be improved, and when you look out at the world, it's easy to see all the problems that are surrounding us. But the thing that I have that, like, and it's hard for me to talk about what I'm grateful for without using the counterpoint of, like, what I came from.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard not to compare it. Yeah.
Yeah. But also in that comparison is a real gratitude as well, because where I come from was a very insecure, a very unstable place with lots of conflict and lots of unnecessary conflict. And I compare where I came from to where I am now, where, the biggest thing in the last 5-6 years that I've been able to do is be okay. To feel like no matter what happens, because bad things will happen.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are, regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you make in terms of salary or the people in your life, bad things will happen. Period. Like, that is the one thing that you can count on, is like whatever you're experiencing now, something will inevitably come along, or you'll invent it, as many of us do, right?
Yeah.
But I know right now in this moment that whatever happens, I will be okay.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of thought that I did not have when I was 5 or 10 or 15 or even 25.
Yeah.
Like, it's a relatively recent thing in my life that I can say, whatever happens, I'll be okay. And I'm really grateful for a life that is so rich and meaningful and full of great people.
Yeah.
Like y'all. But like my film community, my improv community, my journalism community, the kind of adoptive family, like, because for this Thanksgiving, once again, we'll be going to my partner's house, and it is loud, it is raucous, but there's a lot of love there too. So I have all these different universes, and like the LGBT center, that's a whole other community that I've built around myself. I'm grateful for all of the good things, even as I work to try to improve the things that aren't so good.
Right. No, absolutely. And the things that you're grateful just keep you motivated to get through the bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, I have at least one major conflict in my life that's dragging me down. But honestly, for like all of my day-to-day things, I don't really have any major conflicts, which I'm happy for. Like the major conflicts I have are not abstract, but a little bit further away from like I'd say my only major conflict throughout the day is trying to take care of myself to the point where I have energy to do the things I want to do, which has been a good motivating factor the last couple of months to like make and drink my green juice in the morning or do my workout so that I can slowly build energy to see friends and do things like that. And I am very thankful, like I've already said this and Wallace echoed it too, but just to have good people in my life, because I'd say until maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't have like a great circle. Like the friends I had were just kind of like friends that you were thrown together with either in college or high school. I didn't have any collaborators for anything, and I felt very alone a lot of the time, especially when I lived in Los Angeles. Like I had some good friends, but they were like work friends, and sometimes like those can be good friends, but it's not necessarily linked by a similar view of the world or similar like aspirations. It's more just kind of like who you bond with as you're doing your job, which can be nice too. But I'm very thankful I have a lot of people who choose to spend time with me outside of obligations.
Right.
So
I think you brought up a really good point, and I want to expand on that and just that, like, this is something we talked about a little earlier as well, but, like, you know, being that the time we have is so precious. And so I'm learning to be a little more what I would consider to be selfish, but is not really selfish. You know, like being picky with how I spend my time and who I let close to me, where I expend my energy, because I feel like I've treated my energy kind of like a shotgun and tried to hit as many things as possible at the same time.
Yeah.
And really what I need to do is like be comfortable saying no and saying, you know, and no is a full sentence, and you don't have to explain yourself sometimes.
Doesn't even need to be a thank you attached to it. It can just be a no.
Yeah.
And that's hard, especially for like people like us who want other people to like them and be liked and that kind of thing. We forget that the people who are worth keeping around are the ones that can hear the word no and not use it as weaponry against you.
Yeah, I was actually talking. So my witness last night, we were having a little bit of a conversation about this because her son, she said, I remind her of her son because her son is also like, he makes movies. He's been in a couple of movies because he wanted to be more of an actor, but he said we have sort of the same aura, that we're just sort of like silly. And I was like, oh, it's just the weirdness. She's like, oh, I wouldn't say you're weird. And I'm like, yeah, I'm weird. It's okay. Like the arts community and people who do these things, we're all kind of weirdos, but we're weirdos in good, eccentric ways. Like the stand-up people, I feel, are almost all weirdos in the same way. In fact, Lennon said this perfectly because I interrupted him while he was talking to somebody like a couple of months ago, and I realized it, and I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, I totally interrupted that sentence. And he's like, you know, I feel like every single stand-up is just somebody who accidentally interrupts people because we're all weird in the same way. But also with the improv people, like you find your own tribe of people who are weird like you, and same with film stuff. And I think that's really like the key to it. Is just find people who vibe with your weirdness. A lot of people won't, which is cool too. You know, we're all complicated human beings.
Right.
And that's something I had to learn is, you know, how much choice we have. You know, it felt for me growing up, like in many circumstances, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Agreed.
There was not a choice.
It was whoever liked you enough to just want to spend time with you.
And not even that, just like, the general outlook on the world was one where, well, I have to do this in order to do this. I have to fit in with these people in order to get this. And getting older has taught me that, like, there are very few things in the world that are make or break. There are very few moments where you have to rush to make a decision, or else, you know, you need to pay your taxes on time, you know, you know, you.
Oh, sorry, Wallace. I kicked you.
Oh, you're fine. Like there certainly there are arbitrary things that need to have, you know, happen on time, but in general, you know, I've learned in some ways to slow down my reactions to things. And I gave this piece of advice to a really good friend of mine just the other day. I know that for myself, I don't need to react to everything. And I can honor someone else's opinion or anxiety, because really what happens when someone triggers you, there's a good chance they were triggered themselves.
Yeah.
They're dealing with something you don't see, and they're putting their stuff onto you. And I recently had a kind of a troubling conflict with someone who was in my orbit. And I realized the conflict wasn't about me. I mean, certainly there were things that I did that, you know, might have triggered some of it, but the real conflict was theirs.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay to, like, acknowledge what is yours to own and leave the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my therapist actually talks with me about this a lot, and he says it's like the concept he uses is reassessment essentially, but this is reassessment's all internal, and his like challenge to me has always been like, which has helped immeasurably, is if I get upset by something where I realize afterwards, like, I was disproportionately upset by what this person said. My therapist is like, I want you to reassess like what you were thinking about at that time. And more often than not, you're not actually angry that somebody made a snide comment or a perceived snide comment about you. You're angry about your situation, or you're angry about you're not loving yourself enough. Like, there are layers and layers upon it which you need to reevaluate. And sure enough, like, this happened like 7 years ago with somebody at work where it was a friend of mine, and she just did something that made me super angry for no particular, like, she was just kind of casually being her boisterous self. And that was exactly the week that we started talking about reassessment. And since then, with somewhat mixed success, I can't always calm myself down that way, but it's helped really a lot to do that. And like Wallace was saying, like, you can't control somebody else's behavior if somebody else is bringing more into this. The best that you can do is try to calmly assess like the fact that this might not be all about you, and just, you know.
Yeah, and if you come to it from a place of love, you know, like I don't want to get into the weeds on this one specific thing that happened, but you know, the individual kind of confided in me that they are angry all the time.
Yeah.
Which number one is a signifier that, well, they might be angry at me in this moment, but they're angry at a lot of other people when I'm not here.
Perspective.
And you know, that coming at it from a place of empathy, not tolerating abuse, mind you, but trying to understand like what is causing this other thing to happen. You know, it's gotta be exhausting to move through the world and be angry all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that what it is because, like, I have somebody in my orbit who's causing a major conflict right now, who is also, I have discovered, angry all the time. And I think that what's happened with him is that he's spending all of his mental energy for decades, like, just trying to keep it in and be pleasant while he's angry. And now, as he's getting more tired about it, the cracks are showing in the facade. This person still refuses to just get help in this scenario, too. And we were talking about this beforehand, like, you can't force somebody to love Jesus. You have to love Jesus yourself. That was not the best explanation, but like, you have to want salvation is, I think, what I was getting at. You can't be forced to want it. So like, you can't force somebody to go into therapy and deal with their feelings. Like, they have to make the decision themselves. Because I have a personal friend who was forced to go to therapy for like drug and alcohol related issues. And she openly told me she just lied as quickly as possible to get out of therapy. And I'm like, well, that didn't do you any good then. She's like, I just wanted out of there. So we always get to these incredibly good topics as we have to like end because Hal has to go to work. In fact, I'm already a little late for work, but it's okay.
Well,
I got plenty. I'll text my boss and use annual. But before we go too, because we usually end the podcast with talking about what we're doing, I did want to talk about your short film that you did with Dawn, because I watched that last night. If you feel like talking about that is, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. What do you want to know?
Oh, I thought it was really... So the first thought I had was like, did you film that all at the same time? So I'll let you give a quick explanation if you feel like it.
Sure. So I Dawn Michelle, who kind of I've known sporadically for a long time, is a friend. You know, she had this passion project. She wanted to do a stage adaptation of Sarah Kane's 448 Psychosis, and the quick backstory behind that is the playwright struggled with pretty deep depression and mental illness for a long time. This was that playwright's last play. They ended up dying by suicide. And the play doesn't really have a structure in the sense that you would normally associate with a stage play. It is just a stream of conscious experience of being clinically depressed and going in and out of different therapy, inpatient clinics, all of that stuff, viewed kind of from the lens of the person who's experiencing it. And the way, when you do a stage production of that, you have tremendous latitude to stage it however you want. So part of the stage production plan for this adaptation was at the beginning of Act 2, there's a segment where it is just the notes of the doctor who is providing care to the quote-unquote protagonist.
Which it took me a while to realize that was Paul's voice, too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And for that, Dawn asked if it was possible to do like a video. So at the start of Act 2, is after people are sitting back in their seats, they watch this video, which is, instead of it being enacted live on stage, it's a short film that plays, and then it like eases back into the stage production elements. So the short film that I ultimately posted to YouTube a couple days ago was my work, my contribution to that stage play with Dawn, who I think gives a tremendously intense and poignant performance. She has no dialogue in it whatsoever, in accordance with the way it's written on the page. It's just the concept is, the Paul Hood provided voiceover as the doctor who's taking notes, and then we just see these slices of life of this character coming in for their checkups with the doctor for their mental health treatment. Yeah. And I'm very proud of it. And I think Dawn's plan is eventually she wants to get it staged again. So at that point, it might very well show up in front of an audience of people there too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very touching. It's not that long either. It's like 4 minutes, 45 seconds.
Yeah, if you take out the credits, which I tacked on, and I also did like a trigger warning at the beginning because it's some intense stuff.
This will sound weird to say, but I liked the way the trigger warning was phrased. It wasn't just like, warning, you're going to see suicidal thoughts or stuff like that. It was worded in a very Wallace way where it was very like, just so you know.
Yeah, just a heads up, if you've experienced these things, it could be triggering. And then I also I do this from the newspaper as well, because we cover some pretty intense stuff. I always make sure that my staff at the bottom of stories involving, domestic violence or suicide
have the hotline.
Stuff at the bottom of those stories, so that, because you never know. You never know what people are going through.
Yeah, I've seen that practice on a lot of news outlets on the internet and things like that. So I always kind of tip my hat to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hate to cut us short, but
it's okay.
Al needs to go to work. Daddy's got to earn that paycheck for that mortgage.
That's right.
But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving. I hope everybody finds something to be thankful for. Because even if, you have struggles in your life, like a lot of us do, I think that most people can find at least something to be thankful for. And if you don't have a lot to be thankful for, I think you can build on that always. And, but luckily all of us have a lot to be thankful for here.
Yep.
So thank you all so much. I've been Hal.
I've been Shannon.
And now Wallace.
Yeah, thanks Wallace for coming again. We always love talking with you, and I wish we had more time to discuss more. But also, go see Wallace's short film. What's it called again?
It is 448 Psychosis Doctor's Notes, and you can find it on my YouTube channel if you just search for Wally film, all one word.
Oh man, we didn't even get to talk about Seance on this one.
Well, we were
just busy talking about horror movies. Seance is a horror movie. Why didn't you talk about that?
Oh well.
But anyway, have a wonderful Thanksgiving week, and we'll see you next week.